Hi, thanks for watching Nova History Remembered. After the Civil War, it took several years for the Alexandria, Loudoun, and Hampshire Railroad to repair tracks and bridges and get funding to buy new equipment. Since this was a Virginia railroad, the federal government considered it an enemy line, even though the founder was a staunch Union man. This meant they weren't eligible for reimbursement from the government for stolen equipment and damage to the tracks. The difficulty in securing funding meant that the trains didn't return to Leesburg again until 1867. As the rail line opened back up, the residents of the countryside and towns along the way welcomed its return. Besides serving passengers and freight customers, the railroad and its stations offered other services. The stations were the local telegraph offices. Telegrams would be sent and received by the station masters. Young boys would often hang around the station hoping to earn a penny delivering telegrams. The railroad carried mail for the United States Postal Service for most of the time trains ran the tracks, and Railway Express was the United Postal Service of its day. People could order from catalogs and have items shipped to the nearby station for pickup. By 1870, the Alexandria, Loudoun, and Hampshire had been renamed by the company as the Washington and Ohio Railroad, but progress extending the line was slow. After reaching Round Hill in 1874, the W&O Railroad went no further due to a lack of financing. The W&O Railroad went into receivership in 1878 and struggled to continue operations. A series of new owners and bankruptcies came next. The Washington and Western was formed by new owners in 1883 with a somewhat vague idea of where and how they were going to expand. That company only lasted a year before going under, and the railroad became the Washington, Ohio and Western. In 1886, the railroad was leased to a much larger company, the Richmond and Danville, which had many rail lines under its control. In 1894, the Richmond and Danville Railroad, and with it the Washington, Ohio and Western, were swallowed up by the Southern Railway, a company which was buying up any rail line they could in the South. The Southern didn't expect this short line to make much money and was content to just let it amble along. During 1898, the Southern Railway experienced a very profitable year when the Spanish-American War broke out. The area around Dunloring was transformed into Camp Alger, a training camp for soldiers before shipping overseas. The men, horses, and supplies were mostly shipped to Camp Alger on the Southern Railway. The train station at Dunloring had been built in 1886 when a planned development was created for the area and became the staging spot for troops arriving or shipping out. Multiple side rails were installed at Dunloring Station to handle all the extra traffic. Camp Alger only lasted a few months as unsanitary conditions in the quickly thrown together Camp Alger led to rampant disease for the 30,000 soldiers stationed there. In 1900, the western Loudoun town of Snickersville, nestled at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains, petitioned the railroad to extend the line from Round Hill to their community. The area and its hotels had become popular with vacationers from Washington who were looking to escape the heat and pollution in the city during the summer. The Southern Railway agreed to do this if the town financed the train station and changed their name to something more appealing. The prospect of a change from the historic name of Snickersville sparked a controversy in town, but the thought of an economic boom won over most of the citizens. The town became Bluemont, and the rail line became known as the Bluemont Branch. Previously, passengers had to take carriages from the Round Hill station to get to the hotels in the mountains. But now a beautiful Victorian-style station was built to handle the passenger traffic. By the turn of the century, freight and passenger cars were being pulled by coal-fired steam locomotives rather than the original wood burners. Powerful equipment, but noisy, and the black smoke left a stain on everything in its wake, including the passengers during summer when the car windows were open. When the railroad was first planned, stations were located every 2 to 3 miles so that passengers and farmers could reach a depot in a reasonable time. Except for the older established towns like Falls Church and Leesburg, the new stations were located in areas with few homes and little commercial activity. Towns such as Vienna, Herndon, and Ashburn grew up around the train stations. As traffic on the railroad increased, new stations were added, and a few small shelters were built in areas where there were enough homes to draw passengers who otherwise would not travel to the larger stations. The Beaumont branch just kept creeping along into the early 20th century, but big changes were on the horizon. In the next segment about the W&OD Railroad, we'll see new owners and challenges the railroad had never faced before.